So many people spend their lives in a quiet, desperate chase to become someone. They collect books, methods, and disciplines like talismans, each promising to finally make them whole. But notice the strange thing: the very act of trying to fix yourself already assumes there's something broken, and that assumption becomes the trap. If you believe you are fundamentally incomplete, no amount of meditation, affirmation, or achievement will satisfy you. You'll simply carry the same feeling forward, dressing it in new clothes, decorating it with spiritual or self-help language. You see, we have been tricked by a simple idea that life is a problem to be solved and you are a project to be perfected. But the truth is, there is nothing fundamentally wrong with you. There is nothing that needs fixing. This is not to say you cannot grow or expand or learn, but growth is not the same as repair. Flowers do not bloom because they are broken. They bloom because it is their nature. And so the endless chase of self-improvement becomes a kind of running in circles. You wear yourself out trying to become someone, never realizing you were already whole from the very beginning. The root of this constant self-fixing lies in a misunderstanding. You believe yourself to be a separate, isolated I, floating through life, incomplete and in need of repair. But this I, this lonely, anxious, self-conscious entity, is a mental construction. It is a story told by thought, repeated so often that it feels real. And because the story says you are separate, you feel you must strive endlessly to reunite with something greater, to prove your worth, to close the gap between what you are and what you think you should be. But the gap doesn't exist. It was created by the mind, and then the mind spends a lifetime trying to close it. In truth, you are not some small, disconnected being wandering through an alien world. You are the world. You are the very process of existence itself, expressing as a human being. The ocean does not need to fix the wave. The wave is already the ocean, exactly as it is. Once you see that the separate self is an illusion, the urgency to repair it begins to dissolve. You stop approaching life as a problem to solve and begin to experience it as a dance, a movement that was already whole before you ever tried to control it. The chase for self-improvement is seductive because it feels like progress. You set goals, you measure your growth, you move towards some imagined state of perfection. But here's the catch: the goal is always just out of reach. You climb one hill, and from the top you see another. You solve one problem, and another appears in its place. The momentary satisfaction fades, and the search begins again. This isn't an accident, it's how the mind works. It is always projecting an image of a better future, promising happiness just beyond the next achievement. But the future is an endless horizon. You can walk toward it forever and never arrive. Perfection, as we imagine it, is not only unreachable, it's unnecessary. Life doesn't demand you to be flawless. Existence does not keep a scorecard. The tree outside your window isn't struggling to earn its place. The river isn't apologizing for the way it bends. You are not here to become some perfect idea of yourself. You are here to live, to experience, to move with the currents of life as they unfold. And strangely enough, when you stop chasing perfection, you often find yourself naturally growing, naturally refining, not because you must, but because that is simply how life flows. When you finally stop trying to fix yourself, something unexpected happens. A great silence arises within you. a soft, spacious awareness that no longer rushes to judge, control, or improve. It simply sees, and in that seeing, there is peace. You realize that all your efforts to become were based on the idea that something was wrong, that you were a problem to be solved, a flaw to be corrected, a wound to be healed, before you could finally be worthy. But the truth is, you were never broken. You were only convinced you were. The moment you allow yourself to just be, to sit with your breath, your thoughts, your imperfections, your emotions, without labeling them as good or bad, you begin to feel what it means to be free. Not free as in escaping, but free as in no longer needing to escape. This doesn't mean you stop growing. It doesn't mean you never feel pain or sadness again. It simply means you no longer resist those experiences. You no longer build a second layer of suffering by insisting that you should be somewhere else, someone else, something else. In this space of allowance, transformation occurs naturally, not because you are chasing it, but because you are finally in harmony with the movement of life itself, like a flower that blooms, not because it forces itself open, but because the conditions are right and it trusts the process. You don't have to force healing. You don't have to strive for awakening. You only have to stop getting in the way of what already is. The final realization is perhaps the most liberating of all. The self you've been trying to fix, improve, or perfect, the one you believed was unworthy or incomplete, was never separate from the whole of life. The very feeling of being broken arose within the same awareness that contains the ocean, the stars, the wind moving through the trees. You were never an outsider, never a stranger to this existence. You were always woven into it, as much a part of the fabric as every wave, every bird, every cloud. When you stop trying to fix yourself, you return to the understanding that there is nothing to fix. The river doesn't repair itself to be more of a river. It simply flows. The clouds don't struggle to be more cloud-like. They shift, change, and dissolve naturally. The beauty is that when you stop resisting what you are, life begins to feel lighter. Actions arise more freely. Creativity flows without the weight of self-judgment. Relationships become more genuine because you are no longer hiding behind the performance of being better. I often say that life is like music. You don't play a piece to get to the end. You play it because every note is the point. And in the same way, your life is not a test you must pass. It is a song you are already playing perfectly as you are. When this sinks in, there's no need to rush, no need to strive, no need to become someone else. You realize you are already the thing you were looking for. And so the chase ends.